Okay, so in this video, we're going to be starting our first game that actually works and we can actually play. So if we look here, I've got it completed so we can check out what we're going to be making. When we click our go button, we're going to start getting some falling objects with our frog that moves around. And we're going to want to try to eat the bugs that are falling, not get hit with the rocks, and earn as many points as we can. We got sounds in there, and then we get our rock, and the game ends. So we're going to come in and start with a brand new project from scratch. Remember, first step is to name it. We're going to name this Frog Game. Doesn't have to be anything special, just something so that you know what you're dealing with. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to give it a background. So once again, we're going to come down to the backdrops. Down here, we're going to choose a backdrop. We're not going to go random this time because we want to choose one. So again, we've got all of these different options. But if we remember, we're working with a frog and some bugs, so we kind of want something like that. So we're just going to go with the good old blue sky. Now, for this one, we've got our cat in here. That's the default. That's always in here to start a new project, but we don't want him for this one, so we're going to delete him. And come down here to choose a sprite. Now again, we have the same options for backdrop. We can just choose it. We can paint it. We can pick a surprise to get a random one, or we can upload our own. We're going to choose one from here. We're going to pick our frog right here. So it puts him in there. And again, we can move him around. But for this guy, for this game, we don't want him to be able to fly up into the sky. The frogs will normally stay on the ground. So we're going to put him just somewhere in there and let, nothing specific, just let him sit on the ground. So now we got our frog in here, we're going to want to make him move. So if we remember from the first video, we're going to want to go into the events, and we want to start when the flag is clicked so that we start the game. So when we start, got our frog, and again remember, we need to come down to control and bring the forever block in so that it is always checking to see what's going on. It's going to be very similar to the first one in using our if-then. Now remember, we're only going to be moving our guy left and right this time, so we are only going to need 2 if-thens. Once again, we need our sensing key pressed. We're going to drag in 2 of them here. And we're going to want to use our left and right arrows for these. So if that's pressed, then what are we going to do? We're going to come back to the motion. Remember, we don't want to use the move 10 steps because that's just one general direction. We want to use change X and change Y. Well, for this one we're not using change Y because we aren't going to let our frog fly. So we'll bring to the left is going to be negative, and for the right it will be positive. So as of right now, when we click start, our frog can move left and right. Now for this game, he's moving pretty fast, so I don't want to move him that fast. We're going to stop the program so that we can edit it. We're just going to cut the speed in half and bring him down to 5 and check out, see how fast that is. It's a lot slower, but it's about where we're going to want to be for this one. So we've got our frog moving left and right. Now we need something for him to eat. So we're going to come back down, and we're going to choose a new sprite. Frogs normally eat bugs, so we're going to want to look for some sort of a bug. We can come to the animal tab to make it easier to find. And here's a dragonfly, so we're just going to start with that. Notice that the dragonfly is about big enough to eat the frog. We don't want that, so we're definitely going to have to come down and reduce the size. We're going to put him to 50. Still pretty big. We're going to cut it in half again down to 25. That looks a lot better, something that the frog could actually eat. Now remember, we want to name them, but in this case when we add them in, they're already named frog and dragonfly. So we're just going to keep it right there where it's at. So when our game starts, again, we're in our Dragonfly code block, and there's nothing here yet. Once again, we don't want anything to happen until we start our game, when we click the flag. Now what we want this guy to do, when the game starts, we want him to start from the top, as high up as we can so that he falls. You don't really want him to just appear in the middle of your screen and fall. It doesn't look right. So you notice if we bring him up here and just try to drag him up, it doesn't work very well. So we're gonna move him up as high as he'll go, and notice he doesn't go any further. And we can look right here and see that our Y is at 188. So we can either move him up to the top and just sit here and bump him as far as we can until there, or we can just come here and type a big number, and then it'll automatically put it to the highest point on our canvas. So that's where we're going to want our Dragonfly to start, at Y is 188. So when we click it, we want him to start at the top. So we're going to come in here, and in this case we're going to go to motion, and we're going to set Y to 188. So now if we just have our Dragonfly sitting wherever, when we click start, he moves to the top. Okay. So after he's at the top, we're going to want him to fall towards the frog. So with the frog, we're going to want to make him move down. So we're going to change Y by -10. We'll start with -10, see how it looks. Maybe it'll be too fast. Considering the frog is at 5, probably a safe bet. So we're going to click that start button. Notice he only moves down 1. Because once again, we want it to fall forever. So once again, we say forever. So we're going to come in and grab a forever block. Now, if we put both of these in that forever block, it's going to repeatedly try to change Y and set it at the same time, so it's never going to move. So you got to keep these separated. Set Y to the top when we click it, and then we're going to change Y by 10 to go down. And look at it fall. It goes fast, and it gets to the bottom and it stops. So it's going way too fast. We're definitely going to want to knock that down to -5. And now when it goes moving down nice and slow, and we can move our frog over towards it and whatnot. So when our fly gets to the bottom of the screen, we want it to, if the frog doesn't eat it, we want it to not sit here. We want it to go back to the top and start falling again. That way we don't have to have 1,000 sprites in here for however long the game goes. We can just use the same one over and over again. So we want to be able to check and see when our fly reaches the bottom of the screen, which if you see right here, where it stops while we're playing, we've got our Y value again at -177. So while we want it to forever be changing Y by 5, moving it down, and then we're going to want to check and see if it's at the bottom. So we're going to come to the Operators tab. So we're going to come over here and grab our operator button, put it in here for the if-else, if-then. If it is equal to -177, which is where we're at the bottom, we need something to put here, which is our Y value. Coming back to motion, we can come down here and find our Y position. So if our Y position is -177, what do we want to do? Well, we want to set Y again, bring it back to the top to 188. So when the Y position hits the bottom, it's going to set Y to 188 and put it back to the top. And then we're still in our forever tab, so it's going to keep changing Y by 5. So let's see what happens when we run it. Moves down, hits the bottom, goes right back to the top, and keeps falling forever. So So with our fly, we want it to be a game. We don't want the fly to be falling in the same spot forever. You could just sit under there and get endless points and never lose. There's no fun in that. So we want, when it resets to the top, we want it to find a random location across the X value to scatter them around each time so that it's different. So each place that we set the Y to the top, we're also going to want to pick a random X location. So we're going to want to grab a set X. We're going to put that in here too. But we don't want a specific value here. So we're going to come back into the Operators tab. And notice right here we have a pick a random number. So we're going to take that and we're going to put it into the set X value. Now once again, we need to find our values of the maximum left and right. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm just gonna put in a big number and see what it resets it to. It sets it to 251 on the positive, and if we do negative 250, negative 300, it'll go to negative 251. So we're going to negative 251 to positive 251. So we want a random location somewhere in there. Now notice at negative 251, there's only a very little bit of this fly showing, so maybe we want to go a little bit smaller than negative 251. Let's say negative 245. So we're going to go from negative 245 to positive 245. And once again, when it hits the bottom, it's going to put it back to the top, and we want a new location every time. So we're going to do that same thing. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to copy and paste it, put it in there, match everything back up. So now when we click to start, it's going to set Y to the top, pick a random X location across the screen, and then it's always going to, for forever, it's going to change X or change Y by -5, moving it down the screen, checking always if it is at the bottom of the screen, and then resetting it to the top with a new random location. So now if we run it, let's see what happens. Notice it picked a random location, hits the bottom, goes back to the top, and we have a new location. So now we've got our moving frog. Notice nothing happens yet whenever we are over top of it, but that will come in a later video. We can move around and our fly will fall in a different location forever until we stop the game or something else stops it. So that's going to be it for this one. We're going to move on to another video that will go into more in depth on this game, and we'll keep building it out until it reaches what we saw at the beginning of this one.